Hey, this is Dirk-Jan. Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Before we start, a short disclaimer. In this episode, we talk about investments and capital market, but none of this should be considered investment advice. Just saying, now on to the show.
My advice to her would be to build a lot of hard skills when you're young
hmm
and keep on investing into your soft skills. Being a woman is one of your biggest advantages, is one of your biggest strengths.
hmm
And you should not be using it as a weapon to fight, but rather as a weapon to strengthen you and strengthen your position.
Yeah,
Own that, own your identity in it, and you will be sitting in your power. Because otherwise you're trying to fight someone on their greatest strength with your greatest, not
weakness.
weakness,
Yeah.
because you don't have that. You're not a man, but you are a woman. So use that. And if you can take that and put it as part of your arsenal and part of your skill set and part of your tools, you will be sitting in your power.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk-Jan and on this podcast, I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases, and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech. Thank you for listening to episode 60. Today, we're going to discover the world of blockchain and alternative finance. And our guide on this journey is none other than co founder and managing director of Mesh, Connie Bloem. Mesh is building a platform that will truly democratize access to capital and make capital markets accessible to people who have never been able to access it. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, we'll learn how you can build a trading platform for financial instruments on the blockchain. We'll discuss Connie's journey into finance and tech, why investing in financial instruments is non inclusive by design, and how alternative finance can be a solution to this problem. Plus, we'll discover what it's like to build trust with customers and regulators when you're working on a new approach to fintech. So, when you're ready to listen and learn how you can build the future of investing as a woman, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Connie Bloem. Hey, Connie, good morning. Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. Question I always ask at the start is how you got into your current job and current position.
Good morning. It's lovely to be here. I think my journey into how I got into my current job is an interesting one, and it was something that was a bit non-traditional given my background. So I'm South African, and I
Mm-hmm.
currently live in Europe. So when I went to university, I studied industrial engineering, and in South Africa, when you study industrial engineering, you generally go into manufacturing and logistics. But
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved finance. I've always loved the banking industry, and it was a degree that was had an affinity for the financial industry, but it wasn't a easy route into that space. So I
Mm-hmm.
started working, and I did something a bit different. I started working within a consulting company, and during that time when I was in this consulting company, I started working with blockchain, and but this was more out of my own side companies and so forth that I was always interested in. So I
Uh-huh.
started trading in Bitcoin, started trading in Ethereum as all the new projects started coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always run like a arbitrage trading business on the side while still doing my main job.
Uh-huh.
And during my main job, I started building applications and FX trading applications and banks and so forth. And I just fell in love. It was meant to be. But
Mm-hmm.
being a consulting, you don't own that product. You don't own the business. You build
Yeah.
it and you leave it for
Yeah.
someone else. And that actually broke my heart. I couldn't do that. And I started going back to university because I wanted to be more into the financial industry and more into
Mm,
product. And I did a postgrad in financial engineering, which is an applied mathematics course.
mm,
And I went back and I changed careers into a company called Andile Solutions, where we
mm.
implemented treasury and trade systems in central banks and investment banks. And from
Uh-huh.
there, I started seeing the industry from the inside.
Yeah.
I started seeing how banks make money. I started seeing how pension funds make money. I started seeing how investment companies make money, but also how individuals do it and how
Mm,
family offices do it. And I looked at this industry and I was like, this can be better. Why is it so broken? Why,
mm.
when we look at pension fund returns, do they make 40, 50% kind of returns? But when that's paid out to clients, it's 12, 13%. Why is that happening? Started
Yeah.
looking at hedge funds. Why is that happening there as well? And I started realizing this problem statement is actually systemic. It's
Mm,
due to all the intermediaries that are involved. It's due to how complex it is. It's
yeah.
due to how onerous the process is around
Mm,
investing and creating investable assets. And therefore, we decided to start building Mesh, and we started running a project and started building our product, our platform,
mm.
and through that, basically grew this company and grew in this company to what my current role is, and my current involvement in it is as co-founder and managing director.
Okay. So, what is or what are the problem statements that you're solving for with Mesh? One is I think around access. One is about around transparency. Also,
Yes.
making it easier, hopefully, or less onerous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those are the 3 points of what Mesh is actually trying to achieve. So our
Mm,
mission is to make capital markets that are easy to access, simple to use, and
mm.
transparent. But in
Okay.
that, it's also the problem statement. In any given investment that you make, there's around 20 to 30 intermediaries involved in that. You may not realize it, but there's 20 to 30 intermediaries involved. And the intermediary market globally is worth 10 to $15 billion per year. And that this
Okay.
is
And
non-value adding intermediaries.
okay. And what kind of intermediaries were intermediaries? Difficult word.
It is a
Are we
difficult
talking
word.
about? Is this your brokers? Your well.
Yes, definitely. So some intermediaries are value adding and they knowledge sharing,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the others are more process kind of driven. And if you look at the construct of the financial markets, is you have a lot of advisors, you have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of processing agents or payment agents, settlement agents, calculation agents, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing that these kind of people do is they basically just connect you to
Mm-hmm.
someone else.
Yeah.
And looking at technology, we don't need someone to connect us anymore. We can use technology to do that for us and actually gain access to the places that the banks trade at as well.
Okay. So basically, if I really make it simple, it's about cutting out the middleman.
Some of it is definitely about cutting out the middleman, but also
Uh,
putting down technology that
yeah,
can,
actually replacing it is a better
yeah,
word, I think.
replacing it, but having technology that makes it a global capital market.
Mm,
Because sometimes you like a company that exists in the south of Africa
yeah.
and you would like to invest in them, but you're in Europe.
Yeah.
Why can't you?
Well, you can at the moment, I think, but it takes like really a lot of steps because
It's
I need to go to
very
my bank
complex.
and they need to go to find someone in South Africa or Namibia or wherever uh, who can trade in the shares. So there's indeed a lot of steps involved.
Yeah. And also, that's assuming that that company is big enough to trade on a stock exchange.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we're looking at tech companies, we're looking at VCs, we're looking at private equity kind of investments as well. Maybe
Mhm.
you hear about Mesh on this podcast. Mesh is
Uh-huh.
not a listed company. We're not trading on an exchange. But what stops you from investing into that company?
Uh-huh.
And through a
Yeah.
platform like Mesh, you can.
Yeah. So you also created because Mesh is then maybe also good to explain what Mesh does. In fact, is it? It's building a trading platform, I think.
So Mesh is something that we call a multi-sided platform. And
Uh-huh.
what we do is we make capital markets accessible for people that sit with the assets or the company. So people that
Yeah.
want to raise capital.
Yeah.
So let's take our entrepreneurs, they can come
Yeah.
to Mesh and they can raise their capital. And the people that want to invest into these companies. And we connect them directly with each other across this platform.
Okay. And you use blockchain to do that. Is there a particular reason you use blockchain?
Blockchain technology is a fascinating piece of technology.
Mm,
I absolutely love what it can do. But because our fundamental mission in Mesh is to make the market more accessible and more
mm-hmm,
transparent and easier to use, blockchain technology is a technology that allows people to actually see what is going on in their investments and truly have ownership thereof.
mm-hmm.
And if we're looking at creating a global capital markets platform, we need a global network that connects everyone. And that is
Yeah.
what blockchain technology provides us with.
Okay. So it's a purely functional choice also to make sure that you can actually deliver on the promise of also of transparency.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it's blockchain is relatively new, and what you're building is quite complex. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've run into while building the platform?
Oof, numerous. I mean, we grew this company right before COVID, so
Mhm,
I think everyone had challenges during COVID, but during that time as well, we were in a regulatory grey space globally. And
mhm,
at that time, I think the most people were experimenting with something called central bank digital currencies.
mhm,
So the bigger companies within the financial markets were not supporting us at that stage because there was no regulation to govern us.
yeah.
And I can completely understand this because these bigger companies have the responsibility to keep normal people like you and me, our money safe. So
Yeah.
how can they then work with a company that's not regulated and is not safe and there's no objective way for them to judge whether we are safe and we actually do what we said we're going to do?
Mhm,
So that stifled our growth a bit. And we needed to work with regulators across the globe to form a regulatory construct in which we can work. And basically telling them, but we want to be regulated. We want to be responsible citizens, responsible global citizens.
mhm.
How can we construct something that can allow us and our businesses to grow and thrive, allow us to keep on investing in technology, and keep on growing? I would
Mhm.
definitely say that was one challenge, and also getting investment into a company like ours is challenging because on the one side you would think it's a technology blockchain kind of driven company, you should be able to obtain investment quite easily. Yes,
Mhm.
very true. But you mentioned how complex our technology is and how complex our problem statement is.
Yeah.
And because the market that we operate in is a highly complex market, it takes us longer to build, a lot more investments into our technology to get
Uh-huh.
into market and start acquiring clients to generate our revenue. And for VC companies, they want to see return on investment earlier.
Okay. So
So
it's yeah, basically you're not your average B2B SaaS company that sort of either is successful or fails within a couple of years.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's taken us the best part of 5 years to get where we are now, and we're seeing significant traction.
Hmm.
But we needed to find a funding partner that would go on this journey with us,
Yeah.
and it's been challenging. Luckily, we found the right people, but
How did you
it did
go
take
about
time.
that?
It's interesting how we had to go about it. So originally we bootstrapped the company and funded
Hmm.
it ourselves, and fortunately enough, my co-founder in the business, he owns a bigger group, and this was
Mm-hmm.
also the group that originally employed me when we started the company out. And by that interaction, we had more tools in our shed to
Mm-hmm.
create to get funding in. So we first went out to market with Mesh directly and trying to raise capital and so forth. But because of what was currently happening then, or what was happening in the market
Mm-hmm.
at that time, and that was right around some of the bigger blockchain-driven scandals as well. The
FTX.
market, the FTX kind of scandals,
Mm.
and it was just after GameStop and all sorts
Yeah.
of
Okay.
interesting things happening in the market. The funding for directly into blockchain companies was becoming less and less, and we were starting to run into cash flow constraints. So
Mm.
what we then did is we approached a private equity company, and they invested into the group for Mesh. So we
Ah.
de-risked the VC risk via our group structure, and then funded into the startup. Then from
Yeah.
effectively from there. But we're luckily now at a place where our balance sheet is strong enough, and the market is also very favorable for us.
Mm.
So we are going to start going out to the market quite soon to raise our next round, and this would be a full VC round, Series B, directly into Mesh.
Okay. Cool. And what kind of, yeah, then it's Series B investors that you're
Series
looking
B
for.
investors.
And
Yes.
also, uh, does that then dilute, let's say, the ownership of your co-founder, or does he also join in the
Yeah.
round?
No, we will all be diluting in this round, and
Mm.
that would be good to have additional shareholding coming into the business.
Mm.
We generally, when we do raise, we look at the co-founders first, and we ask, is there anyone willing to put more capital into the business as
Uh,
first and foremost. You always get the right of first refusal,
mhm.
and then you invite more people to the party from there. But
Yeah.
yes, definitely going to be diluting.
And out of curiosity, what type of investor are you looking for? More money based or more knowledge slash network based?
I think you always need to have a bit of both,
Hmm.
especially at the age that we are at, and because we're utilizing this capital now to do a lot of expansion and a lot of global expansion as well. We do need an investor that is very well connected in some of the geographies that we're aiming to go into.
Hmm.
But at the start of a funding round, you always need to look at what is currently happening in the market and what your valuation is as well. So you kind of at a Series B funding round, you have a choice of going for a revenue driven funding,
Hmm.
or a valuation tech kind of driven funding round. So
Uh-huh.
this basically divides your VC funding sphere into those kind of two components. On the one side, a bit more aggressive because you have revenue, or on the other side, someone that invests because they love the tech and they love the
Yeah.
platform and they love the story that you're trying to build. We're still very early on in this round, and we're working with a couple of agents to see what is the landscape currently within the VC funding, and which side of the market should we go towards. We haven't completely made up our mind, but it's definitely going to be a combination of money and network connections that will cinch it for us.
Okay. Cool. Um, I was wondering about one thing in the whole fundraising process that you've gone through, because you mentioned that you ended up funding through a group structure. I was wondering what your experience was as a woman pitching to men, in either as part of the group funding round or as part of the solo funding.
I think it's always interesting because in my career, I come out of the financial industry, so
Mm.
I'm quite used to working with the individuals and the companies involved, whether it's banking or VC or
Mm.
private equity. They're kind of our peers
Yeah.
because we work with them from a a normal operational perspective. But then when you start standing on the other side of the table, you also have to start taking in that position. What has been my unique experience is when we started Mesh, I was also very young still. I was
Yeah.
still in my 20s when we started it, and I'm still in my early 30s. And I think the combination of the two was sometimes challenging, but also sometimes advantageous for me. I'm lucky enough to have a co-founder that is a male,
Mm-hmm.
and our team is actually very equally split between male and female.
Mm-hmm.
So the dynamic has never been overtly unhealthy, but I've also known that it has been a strategic advantage for us that we go into the room and we have a, and let me be very honest here, an older gentleman that comes into a room with someone young. I
Yeah.
think from a risk perspective, I also have to put myself in their shoes and say there is also risk involved in having people that are just older and just
Yeah.
people that are just younger. So we basically
Yeah.
come in and we have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I think that has been good for us. So we haven't had overtly negative kind of experiences, but I'm aware that that does bring some weight to the table for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the rest of the industry and looking at some of my sister companies and friends that are building things in the market, I know that their experience is not the same as what mine is. I think that it counts in our favor that we do come from the financial industry and we
Mm-hmm.
understand how they think and how they work and how they do make decisions.
Yeah.
And where being a woman can sometimes be a challenge, my advice generally is like put it on the table, make that one of your strengths, make it the thing that drives this company and actually
Yeah.
cinches your team together and is your unique leadership style. Because if
Yeah.
you own that, you are going to be playing towards your strengths.
Yeah.
Don't try to make it a competing element. And if it's a venture capitalist that is not supporting you at that stage, then maybe they're not the ones for you.
No. No, they're definitely not the ones that should be with you because you're those relationships tend to take a long time span at least if it
Yeah,
goes right, by the way.
yeah, and I
So
mean going into funding and bringing effectively a partner
yeah.
into the business because that's what funders are. You should look at it as if it's a marriage. When you
Yeah.
get married, you don't think about getting divorced. You don't
No.
think about the hard times. You think about how good it is and how well you're matched with each other.
Hmm.
But you also need to consider when things get tough because they will
Yeah.
get tough.
Yeah.
Building businesses is not easy. Building teams is not easy. Going to the market is not easy. Who is that person that you can actually take on those challenges with? And if on any of those questions you have some doubts, then think a bit further, look a bit further. Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't have that luxury because cash flow is cash flow and
Yeah.
you need to get in the market and you have pressures and you have salaries to pay. But if you do have the luxury of time, I would say explore a bit further.
Yeah, is that also why you should? One of the old adages in VC is that you should be raising or continue to raise after you've raised your last round,
You're
because then
always
you
selling
have
your
the luxury
company.
of having a time and runway.
Yes, yes. You're always selling. You're always in
Yeah.
the market, and it's you should keep your eyes open for kind of any opportunities. Sometimes you meet people in the most unlikely places.
Oh, what is the most unlikely place you've met someone in?
I think I've met a couple of people like on holiday in Italy once,
Yeah.
drinking a glass of wine with my husband and just like hearing them speak
Yeah.
on the side and doing some business with them. Conferences is generally a lovely place also to meet funders, potential
Mm.
partners. And sometimes you meet people in parallel industries to yours. I think
Ah.
the one interesting story is I met a company, and one of the reasons why we met is because they started an ice cream company. It's a low sugar ice cream company,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought the concept was extremely interesting. And we were thinking about inviting them to a client event that we were hosting.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started speaking to the owner, I started realizing that he has an e-commerce platform that he's building at the back. And we started exchanging ideas around how can we actually sell financial assets as if it's an e-commerce platform.
Yeah.
And that has been driving a whole stream in my business now, because we're thinking about how do other companies parallel to ours actually sell their products. How can we learn from how they do marketing? How can we learn from how
Uh-huh.
they do product placement,
Yeah.
and maybe sell financial assets in that regard? It's
Oh,
interesting.
that's
It's
that's that's
fascinating.
quite cool. Learning how to sell financial assets through an ice cream company sounds
Very unlikely, but very
yeah,
cool.
but I mean, here we are. Um, I want to switch gears a bit. You mentioned that your team is quite balanced and diverse. Did you do that on purpose?
I can say yes and no,
Mm-hmm.
because the team that we started out with, and I mean, building technology, you generally are looking at software engineers, and within the
Mm-hmm.
software engineering industry, there is not a lot of diversity at this stage.
No.
But also being South African, it's something that South Africans are extremely aware of because of our history
Yeah.
in South Africa. So both from a a gender and a race perspective, we put a lot of effort into our business to make sure that our hiring principles are fair and equitable.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that if we want to see more people sitting around the table and more diversity coming into the industry, we also
Yeah.
have a role to play. And where that role is for us is you can't change the outcome, but you can change the the
Yeah.
input.
Yeah.
So especially when we bring more junior people in, and a startup is a extremely valuable place for people to come in and learn. We can raise them from the moment that they step out of university into the
Yeah.
industry, and we can give
Yeah.
them a head start. So we make sure that as we hire grads, and as we hire software engineers, as we hire more junior people, that we
Mm-hmm.
do take that into consideration.
Okay, so you're actually using the also the experience as a South African woman to your advantage to build a diverse team and then yeah, I think if you change the input you get the output. At least that's what this whole podcast is predicated on. If I
Yes.
create the role models, I get more women in tech and as a result more funding for them.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely aligned on that. And as a business, you have that fine line of wanting to drive change or
Mm-hmm.
wanting to have a certain impact, but also have the other side of where you're still investing, and you have to find the people that are the right fit for the position. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't have either the time or the money to do so, and you need
Mm-hmm.
to hire in experience. But then you can use that again as a opportunity for those people to transfer their knowledge to someone else in the business. I think it's always good to have a good balance between the trade-offs that you make, and how
Yeah.
you can actually then utilize that trade-off maybe to the advantage of the longer term approach that you take to the market.
Great. Um, your co-founder is a man. How does he support you on the journey?
I think I stumbled into this opportunity. I would say, like, you don't really plan to meet your co-founder.
No.
You meet a lot of people, and some people you can build businesses with, and other people you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily enough, Andres is a big entrepreneur in his own right. He's built
Mm-hmm.
a lot of companies, and he's been involved in the financial industry for a long time. and he's still the acting CEO of the group through which we did our funding.
Yeah.
And if you look at his approach to how he builds his teams and how he chooses people to work with, he has currently two other companies that I can highlight within the group structure,
Mm.
and between these other companies is the other MD is also a woman. So
Ah.
he really goes about and he chooses the right people to lead the teams that are in those companies, or he chooses the right person to lead it. I think definitely that is one of his very unique skills and gifts that he sits with.
Hmm.
So he creates an environment in which each of the people that he has in his teams can thrive. And he looks at you as an individual and asks, what is this person's strengths? What is this person's weaknesses? And how must we work around that or with
Hmm.
that to be successful as a company?
Yeah.
And I don't genuinely think that he would see gender as a strength or a weakness. It is
Hmm.
just a fact.
Yeah.
And if you're the right person, he has a very well known slogan in the business saying, if you're good enough, you're old enough. So
Yeah.
give the person that responsibility and allow them to run, because then they are the best person to to perform the role or take the business forward or grow the team. And I have a lot of respect for that. So in the person that he is, I would almost say does it naturally.
Hmm. Yeah, it's sort of built in for him.
Yes, built in.
Okay.
And I think having two daughters is also a catalyst for him to drive this in the market as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you have a daughter, or yeah, in my case a niece, then you're much more aware of the things that are happening, or the opportunities that are there or that aren't there for women. And then you, I guess, as a as a father, you have an opportunity, and if you have an opportunity to change that, I don't know if it's a moral obligation, but it's at least you feel the pressure, I think.
I think we should all have the moral obligation
Mm-hmm.
to in ourselves be the best that we can be,
Uh-huh.
and try to bring out the best in the people that we work with,
Yeah.
regardless of where they come from, which gender they're born with. If you see someone that is passionate about something or has affinity for something, what can we do in our daily lives to bring that out or
Yeah.
assist them on their journeys? It's not going to cost you anything to boost someone or to put in a good word or help.
No, no, but still, I think there's a lot of, to a large extent, diversity is seen as, or is seen as a sort of zero sum game. So what I give away comes at my cost. And what I hear you argue is that it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah,
No,
maybe it costs you like 5 minutes of your time to write
yeah.
that email, but
The world is small. That's the one thing that I learn continuously, and especially when you start thinking about your industry,
mm,
what is what is a global boundary or countries' boundaries at this stage? COVID wiped that away. Technology wiped that away
yeah,
for us,
hmm,
and each industry is small. If you are a person that doesn't either pay it forward or doesn't act with integrity, it's going to come back to you. Everyone knows everyone
yeah,
at the end of the day in this global community. I mean, you're speaking to me out of Netherlands. I'm currently in France, but I'm originally South African. How did we get to each other?
yeah,
It's because the industry is small.
yeah,
People talk, and if you can put energy into a system, if you can pay it forward, and if you can support, it's making your industry a lot better. It's
yeah.
opening up opportunities for you in that industry. So, as business leaders, it would be short sighted of you not to make that investment.
I can only agree with you. So. I want to move towards the end. I have two questions left. One is if you would have a woman asking you for advice, and she has aspirations to start in the alternative finance or blockchain industry, what would be the three advices that you would give her?
My advice to her would be to build a lot of hard skills when you're young
Mm-hmm.
and keep on investing into your soft skills. Being a woman is one of your biggest advantages, is one of your biggest strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And you should not be using it as a weapon to fight, but rather as a weapon to strengthen you and strengthen your position.
Yeah,
Own that. Own your identity in it, and you will be sitting in your power. Because otherwise, you're trying to fight someone on their greatest strength with your greatest, not
weakness.
weakness,
Yeah,
because you don't have that. You're not a
no,
man, but you are a woman.
yeah.
So use that. And if you can take that and put it as part of your arsenal and part of your skill set and part of your tools, you will be sitting in your power.
Okay, I love that quote. To be use your own power to your own advantage. I have an arrangement with Jacqueline van den Ende, one of my previous guests. She's the co-founder, one of I think four women who co-founded a climate tech startup in the Netherlands called Carbon Equity. To make this podcast obsolete in 10 years from now, or actually it's in a bit over 8 years. And irrelevant or obsolete means that diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech is like a way of living that we all embrace. What can I do to make that happen?
I love that challenge. I would love to support you on that challenge as well.
Okay.
And thinking about like what you can do is I think you have a lovely approach already, having this podcast, having a place for building the leaders in this industry up, and also creating a space where people can find those leaders
Mm,
to look up to. And I also like that you mentioned in our conversation prior to this that you are also inviting our male counterparts as well
yeah.
into the conversation and asking them around what are they doing, how are they investing. And
Hmm.
I like that you can be that mediator between the parties,
Hmm.
because it's not a them versus us, it is our problem.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of opposing sides in this conversation right now.
Mm,
It is a bit of a them versus us. And
yeah.
I think through this podcast and through the work that you do, you can create more spaces where we can form a collective.
Yeah.
Because if this is a problem that a lot of people are invested in resolving, we are stronger when we work with it together.
Yeah.
So that would be my component to the challenge that I would place in front of you.
Okay, so focus also on the collaboration and creating the platform where collaboration is possible
Absolutely.
to solve for it. Yeah, I recognize the part where it's still us versus them. Then again, I think it's in part it's normal way of people with the status to respond to changes that are going to happen. It's I see it as a sort of yeah, in Dutch we call it een achterhoedegevecht. So it's a fight that has moved to the background. So it's not
Yes.
something that the people at the front are engaging with anymore. It's yesterday's problem, but yeah, it still it absorbs a lot of energy still. And that if I can help smoothen that ride a bit, then I will absolutely do that. And indeed, to your point, I will be inviting men on the podcast too. So yeah, that I'm looking forward to that. So thank you very much for this conversation, Connie. Really enjoyed it. If people want to learn more about you and about Mesh, where can they find you?
So you're always welcome to find me on LinkedIn. My full name and surname is Connie Bloem. If you want to learn more about Mesh, we have a website at mesh.trade, but unconventional on our domain name.
Yeah.
But you can find all the information on that. Otherwise, we also on all big social media platforms such as Instagram, X, and LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. And we'll include those links in the show notes. So, Connie Bloem, thank you very much for being my guest. Really enjoyed it. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And I hope to see or hear you in the next episode. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to episode 60 of Women Disrupting Tech with Connie Bloem on how to build the future of investing as a woman. Connie and I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation as much as we did, and we want to especially thank Bernard Bussy for connecting us and helping us make this episode happen. If you want to learn more about Connie or about Mesh, feel free to connect with her via the links in the show notes, and as usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. As a member, you get early access to new episodes, you're the first to hear when new blog posts come online, and in my weekly newsletter, I highlight special parts of the episodes and the lessons that I learned from it. If you want to learn more, check out the show notes for a link. Now, when you are looking for a role model to inspire your own hero's journey in tech, I invite you to check out one of the 59 other episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Good Pods. If you're a regular listener, would you consider giving the show a rating or a review? Because that way you help other people discover the podcast. If you're a male ally and you want to help Connie and the other women disrupting tech make this podcast obsolete by the end of 2032, there's a simple thing you can do. Please share the podcast with friends, family, and coworkers, because this way you give my guests, including Connie, the platform they need to make it happen. Finally, if you want to connect with me, reach me via dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog or send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply look up my name, Dirk-Jan Hupkes, and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, keep being awesome.